Good evening and welcome to Conversations with Naseeruddin Shah. Nasir, if you were to play an actor called Naseeruddin Shah, how would you go about preparing for it, and what would you portray him as?
I think I'd probably end up portraying a perfect version of myself, and I think it would be too much of a challenge to ask me to portray myself truthfully.
What is the perfect version of yourself?
The perfect actor, the flawless actor, let us say a godlike version of myself.
Well, let me put the question differently. What do you consider are your greatest failings as an actor then, that you would want to overcome in this perfect actor role?
I don't know if I would call them failings. But over the years, the more work I do, I find myself falling into familiar and safe grooves while playing a particular emotion. And I have come to realize that that is a failing because, for example, the way two different people show their anger or their joy or sorrow or anything is never the same. But somehow or the other, my manner of expressing anger or frustration with the system and so on has almost become a type as far as my own acting is concerned. But the nature of the film industry is such that they will mostly settle for the safe ways out, and which is why, as a result, a number of the roles I get to play are those of the person against the system, the person who's very angry with all the injustices that occur. I have to find newer ways of playing that emotion. I would say that the failings are in terms of craft. I wouldn't say there are very many failings in terms of my approach to acting.
You're a trained actor. You've been through drama school. How important has the training process been to you? Are you able to draw on that?
Speaking for myself, it has been an invaluable period of my life, the training I received at the drama school and later at the Film Institute in Pune. Now that is not to say that an actor who is not trained is not a good actor. There is in fact an old saying that acting is not taught but it is learnt. The mistake a lot of trained actors tend to make is to get far too spiritual about acting, and they tend to theorize things which they don't understand. They find refuge in phrases they've learned from Stanislavski and others. But the feel of being out there with the boards under your feet and an audience which is not necessarily for you, watching you, and winning them over or having them listen is an experience which is more valuable than any theoretical analysis. And luckily for me, I was able to first go through the practice of it and then the analysis. And I think that my understanding of acting, whatever it is, really occurred while I was at the Film Institute and studying acting as a requirement for cinema, which led to a lot of revelations and a lot of understanding, and also the realization that I was not the greatest actor in the world, which I would have liked to believe till then.
Could you share with us the process of preparing for a role? Let's say a more familiar role like maybe the one in Mirz Masala.
While doing what is supposed to be a realistic part, I try and get two things clear in my mind. One is the relationship of this person with people and things around him. And secondly, the situation the person is in. Now, if you look carefully at these two things, you'll find that it takes in almost every aspect of any human being. And then, of course, one has to work on his antecedents and what he must have been as a child, and even things which are not necessarily immediately concerned with what is there in the script. But one has to think about all these things just to give oneself a sort of a springboard. But there are other times, for example, in a film like Mirch Masala or a film like Par, where I felt that individual characterization is not as important as representing the ideas the filmmaker wants to convey through this character. So in those cases, one does not think of what this person eats for breakfast and so on, but you try and become the essence of that idea, try and embody that idea. I'm often asked whether when I play a villager or I play an old Parsi gentleman or a tyrannical guy like in Mirch Masala, whether I go out and observe people of this kind. Now, firstly, it's not easy to come across the sort of guy I played in Mirch Masala. But I also feel, and I'd like to say this for the benefit of younger actors, that if you have not already observed and imbibed everything and everyone you've seen in your life, it does no good to go out and observe them for 5 days before the shooting begins. Because what you'll end up imbibing is only the superficial aspects of it. It is necessary all the time, every living and waking moment, to keep your eyes and ears open. It is what I have been doing all my life. It has been for me the most interesting activity in life, watching people. And I just watch them and I store it away. And when it's required, I try and make it appear.
Before the camera goes action, what's going on in your head?
Before the camera starts, I try and already be the character as far as I'm able. So that when the camera is switched on, I don't have to switch anything on. I'm already there, and the camera captures me as I am, as that character. It's some sort of an application of the method, which is of course much misunderstood and much maligned by people who don't know anything about it. But the essence of the method is to try and become the character. It is of course impossible to completely become somebody else, but you try and think like the character and try and feel like the character, try and become the character as far as it is possible. And I try and apply it in the way that I'm often accused of being unsociable on the sets and unfriendly with my co-actors. But it's not so. I'm not unfriendly. It's just that it's better not to get involved in any other thoughts and things while you're working, because the camera catches all that. The camera catches moments of distraction. The camera catches moments of bias towards another actor. I try and avoid that by keeping to myself while I'm shooting, and to all the time stay the character I'm playing, so that I don't have to put on a garb when the camera begins.
I don't mean this in a frivolous context. You talked about getting involved and not getting too involved with other actors. Why is it that the film industry, for some reason, is associated with promiscuity, and it's a level of scandal and involvement that you have managed to stay away from?
I would think that the film press is the guilty party. because it's the film press which presents film stars in the fantastical apparition they have of themselves. It helps the delusion. It's also a known fact that most popular and successful actors work in more than one film at a time. They often shoot for 3 or 4 films a day. Now, I'm not saying this is wrong. I am unable to work in that manner. And my observation of people who work in that manner has been that the important thing is to have fun on the sets. What kind of a tradition do I have, for example, as an actor in the film industry? Who do I have to look up to? There are people I admire who are now dead, and there are people whom the younger generation hasn't even heard of.
Who are these people?
Balraj Sahni, Motilal, Yaqub, who I think are three of the finest actors who have ever appeared on the Indian screen. But their myths have not been sort of spread. Rather, I'm sorry, I used the wrong word. Their example has not been widely quoted. It's the example of others which we see before us in the film industry, which is being followed.
What are you doing when you're not acting?
Well, I'm playing cricket. I play tennis. I like to exercise. I like to spend time at home.
What kind of exercises do you do?
Depending on the part I'm doing, if it's a part which requires me to look big and tough, then I try and become big and tough. If it's a part which requires me to look smaller or thinner, then I do try and do that. But I like to spend a lot of my time at home with my family. I like sleeping.
You mentioned some time ago about doing the angry role and the new cinema, and you have been on record as being disillusioned with the new cinema.
Yeah.
What prompts this disillusionment?
The fact that I don't think we have evolved. By we, I mean the progressive filmmakers, the so-called serious filmmakers. I don't think as filmmakers they have evolved from film to film. I think they are at the same spot where they were when they began. In a lot of cases, their first films were promising, but I don't think the subsequent films lived up to that promise. I still think the greatest film made in this country is Pathir Panchali, which was made in 55 years ago. It depresses the hell out of you when you think of it. That we haven't gone beyond what we did 30 years ago. And also that the new cinema could not, the fact that it could not speak to the masses in the language they understand is not necessarily a flaw, but the fact that it could not communicate to larger and larger numbers of people.
You're going to be making a shift into television. What has prompted that?
Well, it's not a shift in the sense that I'm still doing films and I'm still working on the stage. I'm doing a program on conservation, which I'm narrating, because I believe that's an important topic. I feel for it. My family belongs to Mussoorie, so I have seen with my own eyes the destruction that has been caused. I have seen hills, not just trees, but entire hills disappearing over the years that I've been traveling back to Mussoorie.
Despite being a much sought after and in-demand actor, you have found time to work on the stage. Is there a preference?
No, I just love working on the stage. And I believe that if you love something enough, you could always find the time to do it. I just love acting. And any opportunity I get to practice it, I like to take. And it cannot be a preference really, because films look after my livelihood.
Do you make a lot of money?
Well, I do. I'm happy with the amount of money I make. And I'm able to live a pretty good life. But I am not in the big money racket. And I hope I will not be. I think it brings too many problems with it.
What prompted the sort of the shift, or shall I say, the dabbling in or working occasionally with the commercial cinema?
The fact that I believe that commercial films are valid, they provide entertainment, which I think is a valid function of cinema. It is, of course, not the only function, but I would say it is a valid function. This point is debatable, but I believe that films which provide entertainment should be made. And I have been working in popular films right from the start of my career. In fact, the third film I did was a popular film in which it didn't turn out to be popular. It was intended to be. But I did the usual stuff. I ran around trees and everything. Not well, of course. I still can't do that well enough. But there are some people who can. And my serious films have not got through to a majority of the audience. In my own village, Sardhana near Meerut, people haven't heard of the films I've done, like Akrosh and Albert Pinto. The films they have heard of is Karma. So I think it provides a measure of satisfaction to an actor to get across to wider and wider audiences all the time.
Whose satisfaction do you need the most? Sort of your own, your family, wife, critics, the audience, the box office, the director, what?
My own. My own, really. Because the joy I get out of acting is my own. I think I'm very fortunate that my acting is able to provide some joy to those who watch it too. But basically it is my own satisfaction that I'm looking for, and that is why the kind of plays we perform in Bombay and never get audiences of more than 50 people, we still continue doing that work. We're not disturbed by the absence of an audience because we are doing it basically for ourselves, for a workout, for fun, to gain whatever we can. And we also derive some satisfaction from the fact that even if there's just 20 people, all these 20 are there because they want to hear us. We're not playing to an audience of 5,000 people who are there because I'm a film actor. They have come here to see the work I'm doing. They have not come here to see me. And it's also gladdening when none of them come backstage after they have seen the play. Whether they've liked it or not is a different matter, but they don't come backstage to meet me and to take my autograph and stuff like that.
Do you feel uncomfortable when that happens, when people grab you for an autograph and recognize you as the star? Do you feel
it's a paradoxical kind of a thing. I know that before I became a professional actor, I always wanted to be recognized and I wanted to be acknowledged. I wanted to see my picture in the papers and so on. Today, when it is actually occurring, I find, and maybe just because I'm in a privileged position, I feel they're intruding on my privacy and so on. And I find that signing autographs is a terribly offensive business. I just hate the majesty of the act. I detest signing autographs. But you cannot explain that to everybody who comes to you with a slip of paper in his hand and says, give me your autograph. I don't believe many of them even preserve those dirty little slips of paper. But I suppose what they desire is a moment of contact with somebody whose image they have always seen. Given the choice, I would like to be left alone.
Do you feel sort of satisfied with your life, and if there is something that you would like to change, or a role that you would like to do, or a kind of film that you would like to do?
I wouldn't mind living my life over again. I'm pretty satisfied with what I've achieved. Even in material terms, I have gained more than I thought I would. I have received far too much acclaim, I think, much more than I deserve. And that again is due to a tendency of the Indian press. I have no respect for the critics of this country, none at all. You can get a good review out of them very easily. I think that we are so used to seeing rubbish that the moment anything that is not rubbish comes along, we immediately acclaim it as brilliant. I think the critics should feel more of a responsibility there. Whereas I generally find their biases show through in their writing. But if there's anything I have not achieved and which I feel frustrated about, it is of getting through to more and more people. There's so many people in this country. I would like each of them, if possible, not to know about me, but to know what it is that I stand for. What kind of function I feel cinema serves, and what kind of cinema I am associated with. And I take pride in my work. I think I'm pretty good at it. And I would like more and more people to see it.
Have you thought of making yourself available to a process beyond simply appearing on the screen, either to further the idea that you're talking about or something larger than that?
I think cinema and television is you can reach farthest through these two media. Going on traveling or performing street plays or something, I don't think you get through to such a large audience.
Or being a politician.
No. No, I don't know much about politics. I'm not too concerned with governing the country or getting into a position of power. I think that one must do what one is driven to do. I am driven to communicate through the medium of acting. Those who enter politics are probably driven to do that. And I think that my work gets through to the maximum number of people. And if I want to get through to more people, as I do, I think it can only be through this medium.
What about the future? Are you excited by the future? Are you fearful of a time when you may not be sort of Naseeruddin Shah recognized on the street, or Naseeruddin Shah access to roles and in demand?
I don't think such a time will come when I don't have work, because if there is anything that I believe in life, it is that if you have an ability, it cannot possibly go to waste. It seems to me one of the laws of nature. What I am fearful of is that I may stop growing. I may stop getting better. And in case my priorities change. Funny things do happen to people who achieve too much success. I think it affects them, and their reality becomes different. I am fearful of that. I am fearful of too much success. I'm not worried by the fact that tomorrow I won't be recognized on the roads. What I'm worried about is, suppose I am not able to achieve my full potential as an actor. And I know I haven't done it yet. And I also know that time is running out. There are limitations in my craft which are perhaps not, it's perhaps too late to remedy. But I will continue to live my life in the way I have lived it so far. I don't think much about the future, I think of the present.